The air is still and warm, long before the sun has fully risen over the quiet lands of ancient Egypt. A soft gray light rests gently across the wide surface of the Nile. The river moves slowly, almost without effort, as if it has no reason to hurry. It has followed the same path for generations, carrying water, silt, and quiet life along its long and winding course. There is a faint sound of water touching the riverbank. It is soft, steady, and comforting. Small ripples move outward and then disappear again, leaving the surface smooth once more. Along the edges of the river, tall reeds stand in clusters. They lean slightly as a light breeze passes through them, then return to stillness. The air carries a gentle scent of damp earth and growing plants, a calm and natural smell that lingers without force. In the distance, the land stretches outward into dry, open space. Sand lies undisturbed, shaped into soft patterns by winds that have come and gone in the night. The horizon is wide and quiet. And rising from this peaceful landscape, not far from the river, stands a palace. Its walls are tall and pale, built from stone and sun-dried brick. The surface holds the early light of morning, turning slowly from gray to soft gold. Wide entrances lead into shaded corridors, where the air remains cool and still. Inside these walls, the world feels separate, calm, protected, timeless. Long hallways stretch from one chamber to another. The floors are smooth beneath careful footsteps. Painted walls show scenes of life, of harvests, of offerings, of quiet order. The colors are gentle, worn slightly by time, but still present. Servants move quietly through these spaces. They do not speak unless needed. Their steps are slow and measured, their movements practiced and precise. Each person carries something small. A folded cloth. A bowl. A jar sealed with care. Each object has its place, and each task has its time. The palace is awake, but only just. There is no sudden noise. No rush. Only a slow unfolding of the morning. Deep within the palace, in a private chamber set away from the outer halls, the pharaoh rests. The room is cool, protected by thick walls that hold back the heat of the coming day. Light enters softly through high openings, touching the floor in narrow beams. The bed is low and simple in shape, yet carefully made. Linen sheets rest lightly across the pharaoh's body. The fabric is smooth and clean, woven with attention and care. The scent in the room is gentle. A faint trace of lotus oil. A hint of something earthy and calm. The pharaoh sleeps quietly. His breathing is slow and even, rising and falling like the rhythm of the river outside. There is no tension here, no movement beyond the quiet patterns of rest. Time passes without measure. Moments blend into one another, soft and uninterrupted. Outside, the sky begins to change. The gray fades slowly, replaced by a pale gold that spreads gently across the horizon. The first true light of the sun begins to reach the tops of distant structures, touching them with warmth. Inside the chamber, the change is subtle. Light grows slightly brighter. Shadows soften. And the pharaoh begins to wake. It is not sudden. There is no sharp movement. Only a gradual awareness. His eyes open slowly, adjusting to the dim light of the room. For a moment, he remains still, as if listening to the quiet around him. The world is already in motion, but here, in this space, everything remains calm. He breathes in and out. The day has begun. Just beyond the doorway, a servant waits. He has been standing there for some time, patient and still. He does not enter immediately. He watches, listening for the smallest sign that the Pharaoh is ready. When that moment comes, it is almost unnoticeable. A shift. A quiet movement. The servant steps forward. He enters the room with care, lowering his head slightly in silent respect. His presence does not disturb the calm. It becomes part of it. Soon, others follow. Each one moves with the same quiet precision. They carry what is needed for the morning ritual. Water. Cloth. Small containers of oil. Simple tools, polished and prepared. Nothing is missing. Nothing is extra. Everything has been arranged long before this moment. A shallow basin is placed nearby. Water is poured slowly from a clay jar. The sound is soft and steady, like a distant stream. The surface of the water settles quickly, reflecting the dim light above. The Pharaoh rises from his bed. His movements are unhurried. His feet touch the cool floor, and he stands for a moment in stillness. This pause is part of the morning, though it is never spoken of. It allows the body to wake fully, to settle into the day. The attendants begin their work. They wash his hands first. Then his face. The water is cool against the skin, refreshing but gentle. It flows in small streams, guided carefully so that nothing is wasted. The rhythm is slow and even, almost meditative. No one speaks. There is no need. Each action is understood. After the washing, soft linen cloths are used to dry the skin. The fabric is light and absorbent, moving gently without friction. Then come the oils. Small containers are opened one by one. The air fills with subtle scents. Lotus. Myrrh. Other natural fragrances, blended softly. The oils are applied with care. They are rubbed into the skin slowly, protecting it from dryness, from heat, from time itself. The motion is steady and calm, repeated in the same way each day. The Pharaoh remains still. His expression does not change. He allows the process to unfold as it always has. Outside, the sun continues to rise. Light enters the palace more fully now, slipping through open spaces and touching the floors and walls. Dust moves slowly through the air, visible only when it passes through the light. The world is waking. But here, the calm remains unbroken. Clothing is brought forward. A fresh linen garment. White, clean, carefully folded. It is wrapped around the body with practiced hands, adjusted until it sits perfectly. The fabric is light, allowing air to pass through, keeping the body cool as the day grows warmer. Then come the adornments. A broad collar, made of beads and gold, is placed around the neck. It rests lightly, catching the light in soft reflections. Bracelets follow. Rings. Each piece is added slowly, without excess. They are not heavy. They do not overwhelm. They simply complete what is already there. The Pharaoh stands, fully prepared for the day. There is no dramatic change. Only a quiet readiness. The attendants step back. The room settles again into stillness. For a brief moment, nothing moves. Then, as if guided by the same unseen rhythm that shapes the river, the next part of the morning begins. Food is brought in. Simple. Carefully prepared. Flat bread, still warm. Figs and dates, arranged neatly. A small vessel containing a mild, thick drink. The Pharaoh sits. He eats slowly. Each movement is calm, deliberate. There is no rush to finish. No distraction. Only the quiet act of nourishment. Outside, the sounds of the land begin to grow more noticeable. Distant voices. The soft movement of animals. The quiet activity of people beginning their own routines. But inside the palace, everything remains measured. Steady. Peaceful. And as the morning continues, step by step, the pharaoh prepares not only for the day ahead, but for the responsibilities that move quietly alongside him, like a shadow that never fully leaves. The quiet of the morning does not break. It simply shifts, gently, like the light moving across the floor. The pharaoh finishes his meal slowly. There is no final gesture to mark the end, no signal that something has changed. The last bite is taken with the same calm presence as the first, and when it is done, the plate is lifted away without sound. The attendants move as they always do. Careful. Unnoticed. The air in the room feels slightly warmer now. The sun has risen higher, and its light has grown stronger, though it still enters in soft lines, filtered through the structure of the palace. For a brief moment, the pharaoh remains seated. Still. Composed. His gaze rests somewhere ahead, not fixed on any single object, but settled into the space itself. This quiet pause is part of the rhythm of his day, just as important as any action. Nothing is rushed forward. Time is allowed to unfold. Beyond the chamber, the palace has begun to wake more fully. Footsteps can be heard in distant corridors, soft but steady. The faint murmur of voices drifts through open passageways, never loud, never sharp. Each sound feels far away, as though held at a respectful distance. The pharaoh rises. Again, there is no sudden motion. Only a slow transition from stillness into movement. The attendants step forward, not to guide, but to accompany. They remain slightly behind, their presence quiet and constant, like shadows that follow without weight. The doorway opens into a long corridor. The air here is cooler, protected from the direct sun. Stone walls rise on either side, smooth and solid. Painted scenes stretch along their surface, telling stories in calm, repeating patterns. Figures walk. Fields grow. Rivers flow. Life continues in images that never change. The pharaoh walks through this corridor at an unhurried pace. Each step is even. Measured. The sound of his footsteps is soft against the stone floor, blending with the distant movement of the palace. Servants who pass along the way lower their heads. They do not stop him. They do not speak. Their acknowledgement is quiet, respectful, and brief. The corridor opens into a wider space. An open courtyard. Here, the light of the sun is more present. It fills the space gently, touching the ground, the walls, the still air. The courtyard is simple in its arrangement, with smooth stone underfoot and a few carefully placed plants growing in shaded areas. The leaves of these plants are deep green, their surfaces catching the light in soft reflections. There is a pool of water at the center. Still. Clear. It reflects the sky above, creating a second quiet world beneath the surface. Occasionally, a small ripple moves across it, then fades again into calm. The pharaoh steps into this space. The warmth of the sun touches his skin, balanced by the light breeze that moves gently through the open air. He pauses here. Not for long, but long enough. This moment is not marked by any action. It is simply a space between things, a quiet place where the day can settle around him. In the distance, beyond the walls of the palace, the land is fully awake now. Farmers move through the fields, their work steady and continuous. The Nile glimmers under the rising sun, its surface brighter now, reflecting light in small, shifting patterns. Boats drift along the water. Slowly. Without urgency. The sounds of life carry faintly across the air. But here, within the courtyard, everything feels contained. Balanced. The Pharaoh begins to walk again. On the far side of the courtyard, another passage waits. This one leads toward the inner chambers where matters of the day will begin to take form. The air shifts slightly as he enters. Cooler again. Quieter. The light becomes softer, filtered through narrow openings high above. Rooms branch from this passage, each one serving a purpose that has been repeated many times before. In one of these chambers, scribes are already at work. They sit on low stools, their bodies relaxed but focused. In their hands, they hold thin brushes and smooth sheets prepared for writing. Small containers of ink rest nearby. Their movements are careful and precise. Each mark is placed with intention. Lines form slowly, building meaning step by step. The sound is almost nothing. A faint brushing. A soft contact between tool and surface. The Pharaoh enters. The scribes pause, lowering their heads. There is no sudden stillness, only a gentle shift in attention. After a moment, they return to their work. The presence of the Pharaoh does not interrupt the flow. It becomes part of it. He moves further into the room. Observing. Not speaking. His gaze passes over the work being done, over the careful lines, the steady hands, the quiet concentration. This, too, is part of his day. Not command. Not force. But presence. A steady awareness of what unfolds around him. Time continues its slow movement. The chamber remains calm. Outside, the sun climbs higher, its warmth spreading across the land. Inside, the air stays cool, held in place by stone and shade. The Pharaoh turns, leaving the scribes to their work. The passage continues. There are more rooms ahead. More spaces where the quiet responsibilities of the day will take shape. Nothing feels heavy. Nothing feels urgent. Each step leads naturally into the next. And so, without pause, the morning carries forward. Like the river beyond the walls, steady and unending, moving always in the same calm direction. The passage narrows slightly as the Pharaoh continues forward. The air feels cooler here, held gently within thick stone walls that soften the warmth of the rising day. Light slips through high openings in thin, quiet beams, stretching across the floor in long, pale shapes. Nothing moves quickly. Even the light seems to take its time. The Pharaoh walks with the same even pace, his steps soft and unbroken. Behind him, the attendants follow at a respectful distance, their presence steady and almost weightless. The sounds of the palace fade further as he moves deeper inside. Voices become distant. Footsteps dissolve into silence. Only the quiet rhythm of movement remains. Ahead, a doorway stands open. Beyond it, another chamber waits. This room is larger, though it does not feel overwhelming. Its space is balanced, carefully arranged, with smooth walls and a high ceiling that allows the air to rest without pressure. Along one side, tall columns rise, simple and strong. Their surfaces hold faint carvings, shapes that echo patterns found throughout the palace. Between these columns, light gathers softly. The floor is cool beneath each step. At the far end of the chamber, a low platform rests, covered with finely woven mats. It is not a throne in the way one might imagine. It is modest, quiet, and placed with intention. The Pharaoh approaches and takes his seat. There is no ceremony. No announcement. only a natural transition, as if this moment has been waiting patiently. The attendants settle into stillness around the edges of the room. They do not speak. They do not draw attention. They remain present, ready, and calm. Time passes gently. Then, from a side entrance, a small group begins to enter. They move slowly, their steps careful, their expressions composed. Each person carries something: rolled papyrus, small containers, simple tools, objects tied to the work of the day. They approach the Pharaoh and pause. Heads lower. Not deeply, not dramatically. Just enough to show quiet respect. One of them steps forward. A scribe. His hands hold a scroll, its surface marked with lines of careful writing. He does not rush to speak. Instead, he waits, allowing the moment to settle. The Pharaoh gives a slight nod. It is enough. The scribe begins. His voice is soft, steady, and measured. The words flow slowly, not pressed forward, but released one at a time, like water poured gently from a vessel. He speaks of fields, of water levels along the Nile, of stores of grain, kept safely in cool spaces. He speaks of small matters, simple things that form the quiet structure of the land. Nothing is urgent. Nothing is dramatic. Only the steady rhythm of life, described in calm detail. The Pharaoh listens. His posture remains unchanged. His gaze rests calmly on the speaker, attentive but unstrained. When the scribe finishes, there is a brief silence. Not empty. Just still. Then another steps forward. This one carries no scroll. He speaks from memory. His voice is just as soft, just as measured. He speaks of workers repairing a wall along the edge of a canal. He describes the slow progress, the steady effort, the care taken to keep everything in place. The Pharaoh listens again. There is no interruption. No visible reaction. Only quiet attention. This is how the morning unfolds. One voice, then another. Each bringing small pieces of the world into this calm space. Each offering a glimpse into the steady movement of life beyond the palace walls. Time passes without pressure. The light in the room shifts slightly as the sun continues its path. Shadows move slowly across the floor, stretching, softening, fading. The air remains cool. Still. At times, the Pharaoh speaks. But only briefly. His words are few, chosen carefully, delivered in the same calm tone that fills the room. They are not loud. They do not carry force. And yet, they settle into the space with quiet weight. Instructions are given. Not as commands, but as gentle directions. A canal should be checked again in a few days. Extra grain should be moved to a shaded store. A group of workers should be given time to rest. Each decision is simple, clear, measured. The scribes listen closely. They remember. Some make small notes, their brushes moving lightly across the surface before them. The room remains calm. Nothing builds. Nothing rushes forward. The flow continues, steady and unbroken. Outside, the day grows warmer. The sun rises higher, its light stronger now, spreading across the land in wide, golden layers. The Nile reflects this brightness, its surface shimmering gently. But inside the chamber, the atmosphere does not change. The walls hold the coolness. The silence remains. After some time, the voices begin to slow. Fewer people step forward. Fewer words are spoken. The work of the morning begins to settle. One by one, the visitors step back. They lower their heads again, quietly, and leave the chamber as they entered without sound, without disruption. The space grows still once more. The pharaoh remains seated for a moment. Then he rises. Slowly. Without urgency. The attendants shift gently, ready to follow. The chamber empties behind him. The passage ahead waits in silence. As he walks, the light changes again. Brighter now. Warmer. The air carries a faint hint of the outside world's sun-warmed stone, distant water, the quiet presence of life continuing beyond the walls. The morning has moved forward. Not in a rush. Not in a burst. But in a steady, continuous flow. And as the pharaoh walks on, deeper into the unfolding day, there is no clear boundary between what has passed and what is yet to come. Only the same calm rhythm, repeating, guiding each moment gently into the next. The corridor opens once more, this time into a quieter part of the palace where fewer footsteps pass. The air here feels slightly different. Warmer than before, yet still calm, as though it has been resting undisturbed for a long while. The walls hold the memory of sunlight, absorbing its warmth and releasing it slowly. The pharaoh walks without pause. His pace does not change. Each step follows the last in the same steady pattern, neither faster nor slower. Behind him, the attendants continue their silent presence, never too close, never too far. Their movements remain careful, shaped by long habit and quiet understanding. Ahead, a wide doorway reveals a shaded garden. It is enclosed within high walls, protected from the stronger winds and the harsher heat of the open land. Here, the air feels softer, touched by life and water. As the pharaoh enters, the light changes again. It filters through leaves. It settles in patches across the ground. It moves gently, as though it, too, wishes to remain quiet. Small trees grow in ordered rows, their branches spreading outward in calm shapes. Their leaves are deep green, some still, others shifting slightly as a faint breeze passes through. The scent of the garden is subtle. A mix of damp soil, growing plants, and faint blossoms. It is not strong. It does not overwhelm. It simply exists, steady and natural. A narrow path winds through the space, bordered by low stone edges. The ground beneath is smooth, worn by many quiet walks over time. The pharaoh follows this path. There is no destination in haste. Only movement. Only presence. At the center of the garden, a small pool rests in stillness. Its surface is clear, reflecting the sky in soft, broken shapes. A few leaves drift upon it, moving slowly, guided by the faintest currents. The pharaoh pauses beside it. He does not reach into the water. He does not disturb it. He simply stands. The light touches his shoulders, his arms, the fabric of his clothing. The gold at his collar catches the sun in quiet glimmers, never too bright, never sharp. Around him, the garden remains calm. A bird lands briefly on a branch, then lifts away again without sound. The leaves settle. The air remains still. This moment stretches gently, without measure. Time here does not feel counted. It feels held. After a while, the pharaoh begins to walk again. The path leads toward a shaded structure at the edge of the garden. It is open on one side, supported by simple columns that cast long, soft shadows across the ground. Beneath it, the air feels cooler again, protected from the direct sun. A low seat has been prepared. Simple. Covered with woven material. The pharaoh takes his place there. Attendants remain at a distance, standing near the edge of the structure, their forms quiet against the backdrop of stone and shade. Another figure approaches. An older man, moving slowly but with steady purpose. His steps are careful, his posture relaxed, shaped by many years of quiet routine. He carries nothing in his hands. He stops a short distance away. Lowers his head. Waits. The pharaoh gives a slight motion, almost too small to notice. It is enough. The man steps forward and sits on the ground nearby, not too close, not too far. For a time, neither speaks. The silence between them is not empty. It is calm. Familiar. The kind of silence that does not need to be filled. When the man finally speaks, his voice is soft and even. He speaks not of tasks or reports, but of things that move more slowly. The condition of the soil after the last flood. The way certain plants have grown this season. The pattern of the wind in recent days. His words are gentle, flowing at the same pace as the quiet world around them. The pharaoh listens. His gaze rests softly ahead, not fixed, not distant. Present. There is no interruption. No correction. Only the steady exchange of quiet thought. At times, the pharaoh responds. His voice is low. Measured. He speaks in short phrases, each one placed carefully, like stones set along a path. The conversation continues like this, without strain, without urgency. It does not seek to reach an end. It simply moves. Like the river. Like the day itself. As time passes, the light begins to shift again. The sun has moved higher, and its warmth grows more noticeable, even within the shaded space. The edges of shadows soften, their shapes changing slowly across the ground. The garden remains still. The pool reflects a brighter sky now. The leaves hold their quiet green. Eventually, the conversation comes to rest. Not with a final word, but with a gentle fading. The older man lowers his head once more and rises carefully. His movements remain slow, steady, and unforced. He leaves as he came. Without sound. Without disruption. The pharaoh remains seated for a moment longer. The air is warm, but not heavy. The stillness remains complete. Then, with the same calm that has shaped every part of the morning, he stands. The attendants shift slightly, ready once more to follow. The path through the garden lies open. The day continues. There are more spaces to pass through. More quiet beauties to meet. But nothing calls loudly. Nothing pulls with urgency. Each moment waits its turn. And as the pharaoh walks once again along the shaded path, the gentle rhythm of his day carries forward. Unbroken, unchanged, and softly leading into whatever comes next. The garden path narrows as it reaches its far edge. The shade grows deeper here, where the walls rise a little higher and the sunlight enters only in soft, filtered lines. The warmth of the day lingers gently in the air, but it does not press too strongly. The pharaoh walks on. Each step remains even. Unhurried. The soft sound of his movement blends with the quiet of the garden, then fades as he passes once more into the stone corridors of the palace. Inside, the air shifts again. Cooler. Stiller. The scent of plants and water fades, replaced by the faint, dry calm of stone and shaded space. The light is softer here, resting quietly along the walls and floor. The passage ahead curves slightly, leading toward another set of chambers. These rooms are quieter than the others. Less visited. Their purpose is simple, though not often seen. As the pharaoh enters, the space opens into a long, low hall. Along its sides, large clay vessels are arranged in careful rows. Each one is sealed, marked, and placed with attention. They hold grain, oils, dried goods, small pieces of the land's abundance, gathered and kept safe. The air carries a faint scent of stored harvest. Dry. Warm. Steady. A few workers move slowly among the vessels. They check seals. They adjust placements. Their hands move with quiet precision, guided by habit and care. When they notice the Pharaoh, they pause briefly, lowering their heads in respect, then return to their tasks. Nothing is interrupted. Nothing changes suddenly. The Pharaoh walks through the hall, his gaze passing calmly over the rows. There is no need for words. The order of the space speaks for itself. Each vessel in its place. Each task completed in its time. The quiet of the room feels deep. Held. Almost like a pause within the larger flow of the day. After some time, he moves on. The hall narrows again, leading toward a smaller chamber at the far end. Here, the light is dimmer. The air is cooler. A single opening near the ceiling allows a narrow beam of sunlight to fall into the room, touching the floor in a soft, steady line. At the center, a low table has been set. Simple objects rest upon it. A small bowl. A folded piece of linen. A few carefully arranged items, each with its own quiet purpose. The Pharaoh approaches. He pauses. For a moment, nothing moves. The attendants remain at the entrance, their presence distant and still. This space feels different. Not because it is grand, but because it is quiet in a deeper way. A stillness that settles not only in the air, but in the body. The Pharaoh reaches forward slowly. His hand moves without haste. He touches the edge of the table, resting his fingers lightly against the smooth surface. There is no urgency in this action. No need for completion. Only presence. Time passes, though it is difficult to feel how much. The beam of light shifts slightly across the floor. The air remains unchanged. Calm. Steady. After a while, the Pharaoh steps back. His movement is gentle, almost blending into the stillness itself. He turns and walks toward the entrance. The attendants follow once more, their steps quiet and measured. The corridor beyond feels familiar. Its cool air, its soft light, its steady silence all unchanged. The palace continues around them. Rooms filled with quiet work. Spaces held in careful order. The Pharaoh moves through it all without disturbance. Like a current passing through still water. Outside, the sun has begun its slow descent from its highest point. The light shifts from bright to warm. Shadows begin to stretch slightly longer, though the day is far from ending. Within the palace, the rhythm remains the same. Steady. Unbroken. The Pharaoh approaches another open space. This one larger than before, with wide columns and an open side that allows the air to pass through freely. Beyond it, the land can be seen once more. The Nile, calm and shining. The distant fields, moving gently with quiet work. The sky, wide and clear. He steps into this space. The breeze touches him lightly. It carries with it the scent of water and sun-warmed earth. He pauses. Looking outward. Not searching. Not thinking in any urgent way. Simply present with what is before him. The attendants remain behind, allowing the moment to stand on its own. The world beyond the palace moves slowly, just as it always has. Boats drift. People walk. The river flows. Everything continues. And within this quiet pause, the Pharaoh stands between the stillness of the palace and the soft motion of the world outside. Both steady. Both calm. Both endless in their own way. After some time, he turns once more. The day is not yet finished. There are still quiet moments ahead. Still spaces to pass through. Still time to unfold. And so, with the same gentle rhythm that has carried him from the first light of morning, the Pharaoh walks on. Into the slow, golden hours of the afternoon. The open space remains quiet as the Pharaoh steps back into the shade. The warmth of the afternoon lingers in the air, gentle and even, without weight. The breeze from the river fades as the stone walls of the palace once again surround him. Inside, the light has changed. It is no longer the pale glow of morning, nor the bright stillness of midday. It has softened, taking on a warmer tone, stretching across the floors in long, calm shapes. The Pharaoh walks on. His pace remains the same. Unhurried. Measured. The corridors seem more still now, as though the palace itself has settled into the slower rhythm of the afternoon. Fewer footsteps pass. The quiet feels deeper, more complete. As he moves forward, the passage opens into a room filled with gentle activity. Here, the work is delicate. Careful. Unspoken. Several attendants sit along one side, their hands moving slowly over pieces of linen. They smooth the fabric, fold it, arrange it in quiet patterns. The soft rustle of cloth is the only sound that rises, and even that fades quickly into the still air. The Pharaoh enters without interrupting. No one rushes to stop. No one changes their motion. They simply continue, their awareness shifting gently to include his presence. He walks along the edge of the room. Observing. Not inspecting. Not judging. Only seeing. The linen is pale and clean, its surface catching the soft light. Each fold is precise, shaped by steady hands and patient attention. A faint scent of fresh cloth lingers in the air. Light. Almost unnoticeable. The Pharaoh pauses briefly, then continues on. The room fades behind him, its quiet work continuing unchanged. The corridor bends slightly, leading into another chamber. This one is smaller. More enclosed. The air is cooler again, held within thick walls that soften the heat of the day. A single opening allows a narrow line of light to enter, touching the far wall in a gentle glow. Inside, a young attendant kneels beside a low table. On the table rests a collection of small objects. Simple tools. Carefully arranged. The attendant's hands move slowly, cleaning each item with a soft cloth, then placing it back in its place. The motion is repetitive, calm, without any sign of strain. When the Pharaoh enters, the attendant pauses, lowering his head. The room becomes even quieter. The Pharaoh steps closer. He looks at the objects, at the careful arrangement, at the quiet dedication in the work. There is no need to speak. After a moment, he gives a slight motion. The attendant lifts his head and returns to his task, his movements just as steady as before. The Pharaoh turns and leaves the chamber. The corridor continues. Its silence remains unbroken. The afternoon light shifts slowly as time passes, its warmth deepening, its brightness softening. Shadows stretch a little longer now, though they remain gentle, without sharp edges. Further along, the passage opens into another courtyard. This one larger than the garden before. More open. The sky above is wide and clear, its color beginning to change, moving slowly toward the softer tones of late afternoon. The ground is warm beneath each step. The air is still, touched only occasionally by a light breeze that passes through and then fades. At one side of the courtyard, a group of workers rests. They sit quietly, their tasks set aside for a short while. Some drink water. Others simply sit, their bodies relaxed, their breathing slow. There is no loud conversation. No sudden movement. Only rest. The Pharaoh walks along the edge of this space. His presence is noticed, but it does not disturb the calm. The workers lower their heads briefly, then return to their quiet stillness. This moment belongs to them. And it is allowed to remain. The Pharaoh continues on. Across the courtyard, toward another shaded passage. As he moves, the sun lowers slightly in the sky. Its light becomes softer, warmer, spreading across the walls in a golden tone. The air begins to cool, though the change is gentle, almost unnoticed. Inside the next passage, the quiet deepens once more. The palace feels different now. Not asleep, but slower. More settled. The Pharaoh's steps echo softly, then fade. Each movement blends into the stillness around him. Ahead, a final chamber waits. It is simple. Open. With wide windows that allow the light of the late afternoon to enter freely. The Pharaoh steps inside. The room is empty. No attendants. No workers. Only space. And light. He walks to the edge of the window. Beyond it, the land stretches out, calm and endless. The Nile flows as it always has. Fields rest under the warm glow of the descending sun. The sky begins to soften, its brightness easing into a gentle, golden haze. The Pharaoh stands there. Quiet. Still. There is nothing to be done in this moment. Nothing to be decided. The day has carried itself forward, step by step, without force. And now, it begins to slow. Just as the morning once began. The light shifts. The air cools. The world outside softens. And within this quiet room, the Pharaoh remains. Present. Steady. And at ease within the gentle closing of the day. The light at the window softens further. It no longer rests sharply on the land, but spreads in a quiet, golden haze. The edges of things, fields, water, distant walls become less defined, as though the world itself is settling into a slower breath. The Pharaoh remains where he stands. Still. Unmoving. The warmth of the day begins to ease, replaced by a gentle coolness that drifts in through the open space. It touches the stone, the air, the skin, without urgency. Outside, the Nile continues its steady movement. Its surface reflects the changing sky, shifting from bright gold to softer tones, like a mirror slowly dimming. A boat passes in the distance. Slowly. Without sound. Its shape glides across the water, then fades into the wider calm. The Pharaoh turns at last. Not suddenly. Only when the moment feels complete. He steps away from the window, and the room returns to stillness behind him. The corridor beyond is quieter now. The activity of the day has lessened. Fewer footsteps move through the palace. Fewer voices carry through the halls. The walls hold a deeper silence. He walks forward. His steps remain the same. Measured. Even. The attendants follow once more, their presence unchanged, soft as shadows in the lengthening light. As he moves through the passage, the light from the outside reaches in at an angle, stretching long lines across the floor. These lines shift slowly, marking the quiet passage of time without need for any sound. The air carries a faint coolness now, a sign of evening approaching. The Pharaoh passes through familiar spaces. Rooms that were once filled with quiet work are now resting. Tools have been set aside. Surfaces cleared. Everything remains in order, but untouched, waiting for another day. In one chamber, a small lamp has already been lit. Its flame is steady, gentle, casting a warm glow that flickers softly against the walls. The light is not strong, but it does not need to be. It simply holds the space. The Pharaoh continues. The corridor widens, leading toward a more open hall. Here, the ceiling rises higher, and the air feels lighter, as though it has more room to rest. A few attendants move quietly along the edges, preparing for the coming evening. They place lamps, adjust coverings, move with slow, practiced care. No one rushes. No one speaks above a soft tone. The Pharaoh walks through this space without interruption. The preparations continue around him, flowing naturally, as though his presence is part of the rhythm itself. Beyond this hall, another open area waits. A terrace. It looks out over the land, offering a wider view of the river and the distant horizon. The Pharaoh steps onto it. The sky has changed now. Its brightness has softened into a calm blend of gold, pale orange, and fading blue. The sun lowers steadily, its shape no longer sharp, but gentle and quiet. The air is cooler here. A soft breeze moves across the terrace, carrying with it the scent of water and earth. It passes over the stone floor, through the open space, and then fades again into stillness. The Pharaoh walks to the edge. He stands, looking outward. There is no need for thought. No need for action. Only the presence of the moment. The land stretches quietly below. Fields resting after a day of work. Paths emptying as people return to their homes. The river flowing, unchanged. The sky continuing its slow transformation. A bird crosses the horizon. Its wings move in steady rhythm. Then it disappears into the fading light. The Pharaoh remains. Time moves. But it does not press. It simply continues. Behind him, the attendants wait at a respectful distance. They do not step forward. They do not speak. They allow the stillness to remain untouched. As the sun lowers further, the colors deepen. Gold becomes amber. Amber softens into muted shades of dusk. Shadows lengthen, stretching across the land and the palace alike. The warmth of the day fades gently, replaced by a calm, even coolness. At last, the Pharaoh turns again. The terrace remains behind him, open and quiet. He steps back into the palace. The light inside now comes mostly from the lamps. Their soft glow fills the corridors, creating a steady warmth that replaces the fading sun. The air is still, calm. The evening has begun. He walks once more through the halls, his steps unchanged, his presence steady. The day has not ended in any sudden way. It has simply softened, shifted, moved from light into shadow, from warmth into coolness, from activity into rest. And as the Pharaoh continues through the quiet palace, the gentle rhythm of his life carries forward into the calm and peaceful embrace of the night. The corridors are now lit by a gentle line of lamps. Their flames are small and steady, each one holding its own quiet glow. The light they give is warm, soft against the stone, never too bright, never harsh. The Pharaoh walks through this calm illumination. His shadow moves beside him, long and faint, stretching and fading with each step. The walls reflect the flicker of the flames, creating a slow and peaceful rhythm of light and shade. The air has cooled. It carries no weight from the heat of the day, only a calm stillness that settles easily around everything it touches. The sounds of the palace have changed. Where there was once quiet work, there is now quiet rest. Footsteps are rare. Voices are low and distant. Even the smallest movement feels softened by the evening. The Pharaoh continues forward. The attendants follow, their presence as steady as before, their movements shaped by the same quiet understanding that has carried them through the entire day. They reach a smaller chamber. The entrance is open, the light within dim and warm. Inside, a low table has been prepared. Simple food rests upon it. Flat bread. Small portions of vegetables. A bowl of fruit. A vessel of water. Everything is arranged with care, but without excess. The Pharaoh enters. He takes his place. The attendants remain near the edges, still and quiet. There is no ceremony. No spoken signal. The meal begins in silence. The Pharaoh eats slowly. Each movement is calm, measured, without distraction. The food is simple. Its taste gentle. Its purpose clear. To sustain. To continue the steady rhythm of the day. Nothing more. Nothing less. The room remains quiet. The only sound is the soft movement of hands, the faint touch of objects against the table, the quiet presence of breath. Time passes. Not marked. Not counted. Only felt in the slow unfolding of the moment. When the meal is finished, the Pharaoh rests for a short while. He does not rise immediately. He remains seated, his posture unchanged, his presence steady. The attendants begin to clear the table. Their movements are careful, practiced, almost silent. Each item is lifted. Each space returned to its calm simplicity. The room empties again. The Pharaoh stands. He moves toward the doorway. The corridor beyond is even quieter now. The lamps continue their steady glow. The shadows remain soft. The night has deepened. Outside, the sky is dark. Not completely. A faint trace of light lingers near the horizon, but above it, the deeper tones of night have taken hold. A few early stars begin to appear. Small. Distant. Steady. The Pharaoh walks through the final passages of the evening. These corridors are the most still of all. Few pass through them. Few sounds reach them. They exist almost entirely in silence. The air feels settled. Undisturbed. As though it has been waiting. He reaches a private chamber. The entrance is simple. Unmarked by any display. Inside, the space is calm. The walls are smooth. The light comes from only a few small lamps, placed carefully so that the room is held in a gentle, even glow. A resting place has been prepared. Low. Covered with soft linen. The air here is cooler, touched by the deeper quiet of night. The Pharaoh enters. The attendants remain near the entrance, their presence now even more distant, as though the space itself asks for less. He moves slowly across the room. There is no haste. No final task to complete. Only the quiet closing of the day. He pauses briefly. Then sits. The room holds still. Nothing moves. Nothing changes. The lamps flicker softly, their light steady and warm. Outside, the night deepens. More stars appear. The land rests. The river flows in darkness, its movement unseen but constant. The Pharaoh lies down. His movement is slow, gentle, without sound. The linen shifts softly beneath him. The air remains calm. His breathing settles. Even. Quiet. Unbroken. The attendants lower their heads and step back. Their presence fades further into the edges of the room, until they are almost part of the stillness itself. No words are spoken. No signals are given. The day has ended in the same way it began. Without force. Without sudden change. Only a gradual, gentle transition. The lamps continue to burn. Their light softens as the night deepens. The walls hold the quiet. The air remains still. Time moves forward. But it is no longer something to follow. It simply passes. Softly. Silently. Like the movement of the river in the dark. And within this quiet chamber, the Pharaoh rests. Held in the calm rhythm that has carried him through the day, and now carries him gently into the deep, peaceful stillness of night. The chamber remains still. The lamps burn lower now, their flames smaller, softer, as though they too are resting. Their light no longer reaches as far, gathering close to where they stand, leaving the corners of the room in quiet shadow. The Pharaoh lies undisturbed. His breathing remains steady. Slow. Even. The rise and fall of his chest follows a rhythm that does not change. Outside, the night has fully settled. The sky is deep and wide, filled with distant stars that shine without flicker. They remain constant, untouched by the quiet movements below. The Nile flows in darkness. Its surface cannot be seen clearly, yet its presence is felt. A steady, endless motion that continues without sound, without pause. The palace rests. Its corridors, once filled with quiet steps, now hold only silence. The stone walls keep the cool of the night, releasing the last traces of the day's warmth into the still air. In distant parts of the palace, a few attendants remain awake. Their movements are slow and careful. They tend to the lamps. They walk the passages. They ensure that everything remains as it should be. But even these small actions feel softened, as though wrapped in the deeper quiet of the night. Nothing disturbs the chamber. Nothing calls for attention. Time passes in long, unbroken stretches. Not measured. Not marked. Only felt in the gradual shifting of light and shadow. The lamps continue to dim. One flame flickers slightly, then steadies again. Another grows smaller, its light folding inward. The room grows darker, but not in a way that feels heavy. It feels calm. Complete. The Pharaoh remains at rest. His presence is still. Unmoving. The rhythm of his breathing continues, unchanged. Outside, the night begins its slow turning. It is not something that can be seen at once. Only sensed. A slight change in the air. A faint softening at the edge of the sky. The stars remain, but their brightness feels different, as though they are beginning to step back, making space for what will come. A gentle coolness settles deeper across the land. The breeze, if it moves at all, is so light it cannot be felt. Everything holds still. Within the chamber, one of the lamps finally fades. Its flame lowers, then disappears. A thin line of smoke rises briefly, then vanishes into the darkness. The remaining light grows softer. More distant. The shadows deepen, blending into one another. The space becomes quieter still. The Pharaoh sleeps. There is no movement. No change. Only the steady rhythm of rest. In this stillness, the world continues its quiet motion. The river flows. The air shifts. The sky turns. Slowly. almost imperceptibly. The first sign of morning begins far beyond the horizon. A faint light, too distant to be seen clearly, begins to form. It does not yet reach the land. It does not yet touch the palace. But it is there. Waiting. The stars begin to fade, one by one. Not suddenly. Not all at once. They simply become less bright, less present, as though stepping gently aside. The sky softens. Its darkness lightens slightly, though the night still holds its place. Within the palace, the air begins to change. The coolness remains, but it carries a different feeling now. A quiet sense of beginning. The Pharaoh's breathing remains steady. Unbroken. The stillness of his rest continues. The final lamp burns low. Its flame is small, almost hidden within itself. Its light barely reaches the walls. And yet, it remains. A quiet presence in the deep calm. Outside, the horizon grows lighter. A soft line of pale color begins to form, stretching slowly across the distant edge of the world. It is not yet dawn. But it is close. Very close. The night prepares to release its hold. The day prepares to begin again. And within the quiet chamber, unchanged and undisturbed, the Pharaoh rests. Held between the fading night and the coming light, carried gently by the same steady rhythm that has no beginning, and no end. The first light of morning arrives without sound. It does not enter suddenly. It does not change the world in a single moment. It simply begins, slowly, as a faint softness along the edge of the horizon. The night does not leave at once. It lingers. Holds on. Then gradually loosens its grip. Inside the chamber, the remaining lamp still burns, though its flame is small now. It trembles slightly, then steadies again, as if aware of the approaching change. The Pharaoh continues to sleep. His breathing remains even. Calm. Unbroken. The room around him begins to shift in tone, though nothing inside it moves. The darkness is no longer complete. It carries a softer texture now, as if light is gently pressing into it from far away. Outside, the sky changes first. A pale line grows wider along the horizon. Very faint. Very quiet. It spreads slowly, like ink dissolving into water. Stars begin to fade further, their presence growing lighter with each passing moment. They do not disappear at once. They simply become less certain, less defined, until they are almost no longer there. The palace remains still. Its walls hold the last coolness of night. Its corridors rest in silence. Even the attendants who move through distant passages do so with the same soft, careful rhythm as before, as though the entire building understands this quiet transition. In the chamber, the lamp flickers once more. Its flame lowers. Then steadies. Then lowers again. The light it gives is now barely enough to touch the immediate space around it. And still, it remains. Outside, the first true suggestion of dawn begins to appear. Not yet bright. Not yet golden. Only a soft, pale glow that spreads gently upward into the sky. It touches the land without disturbing it. It reaches the river, turning its surface from darkness into a faint, reflective shimmer. The Nile moves as it always does. Slow. Continuous. Unchanged. The Pharaoh stirs slightly. Not fully awake. Only a subtle shift, like the body adjusting within rest as the world around it changes. The rhythm of his breathing remains steady. The chamber grows brighter. Very gradually. The edges of objects begin to reappear from the darkness. The outline of the bed. The folds of linen. The shape of the walls. Everything returns slowly into view. The final lamp burns lower. Its flame becomes smaller still. Then, with a gentle weakening, it fades. The room is no longer held by artificial light. Only the dawn remains. Soft. Spreading. Quiet. The Pharaoh does not rise immediately. He remains still for a moment longer, as though allowing the night to fully release its hold. The world outside continues its gentle transformation. The sky grows lighter. The horizon deepens into soft tones of pale gold and early blue. Birds begin to stir in the distance, though their sounds are faint and scattered, not yet fully formed into the day's rhythm. The palace begins to awaken again, not abruptly, but in the same calm manner it always has. A slow return. A quiet unfolding. Inside the chamber, the air feels slightly warmer now, touched by the first breath of morning light. The Pharaoh finally begins to wake. There is no rush in the movement. No sharp change. Only a gradual return to awareness. He opens his eyes slowly. The room is no longer dark. It is filled with a soft, early light that feels gentle against everything it touches. The attendants remain at a distance, waiting patiently, already prepared for the morning to begin again. The Pharaoh sits up. The movement is steady. Unhurried. The cycle continues as it always has. Outside, the sun is still below the horizon, but its presence is already felt. A quiet promise of warmth. Of light. Of another day beginning in the same steady rhythm. The chamber is no longer night. But not yet fully day. It rests in between. A calm, suspended moment where everything feels balanced and still. The Pharaoh stands. And as he does, the palace begins once more to prepare itself for the slow unfolding of another peaceful day. The first full light of morning spreads across the palace in slow waves. It is still soft, still gentle, but no longer uncertain. The sky has opened into pale gold and light blue, and that color filters through every corridor it can reach. Inside the chamber, the Pharaoh stands in quiet stillness for a moment. The night has fully released him now. There is no trace of darkness left within the room, only the calm brightness of early morning. The air feels fresh. Cooler than the warmth that will come later. Carrying the faint scent of stone that has rested through the night. Attendants step forward with the same careful rhythm as before. No change in urgency. No change in tone. Everything continues as it always has. Water is brought in again. Clear. Still. It rests in a shallow basin, catching the morning light as it enters the room. The Pharaoh washes slowly. His movements are unhurried, familiar, and steady. The water runs over his hands and face, washing away the quiet stillness of sleep, not as a sudden change, but as a gradual return to awareness. The cloths follow. Soft linen. Drying gently. The morning oil is prepared once more. Its scent is subtle, rising lightly into the air: lotus, earth, something faintly floral and grounding. It is applied with the same care as the day before. And the day before that. And the day before that. Time here does not feel new in a sudden way. It feels continuous. Like a river that never stops, only changes its light as it moves. The Pharaoh stands quietly as the attendants prepare his garments. The linen is fresh again. Light in color. Simple in form. It is wrapped with practiced hands, not rushed, not delayed. Each fold settles into place as though it already knows where it belongs. The collar follows. Beads and gold catching the early light. soft reflections moving across their surfaces as the room brightens. Bracelets, rings, all placed with the same careful rhythm. Nothing is heavy. Nothing is forced. Everything feels part of the same long, familiar morning. Outside the chamber, the palace is already more awake than before. Footsteps move through distant corridors. Soft voices carry briefly, then fade again. Doors open and close gently. The day is returning to itself. The Pharaoh begins to walk again. His first steps of the new day are the same as always. Even. Calm. Without hesitation. The corridor beyond is filled with morning light now, brighter than before but still soft enough to rest comfortably on the stone walls. The palace feels different in this light. Not changed, but renewed. The same spaces, seen again under a new sky. He moves through the hallways, passing familiar rooms that have already resumed their quiet activity. Scribes sit at their places once more. Their brushes move across surfaces with steady precision. The soft sound of writing returns, faint and continuous, like a distant rhythm that supports everything else. Workers prepare small details of the day. Checking. Adjusting. Restoring order where needed. Everything moves, but nothing feels rushed. The Pharaoh passes through this living stillness. His presence does not interrupt it. It flows around him gently, like water around stone. In a courtyard ahead, sunlight has fully arrived now. It rests warmly on the ground. On the walls. On the still surface of a small pool. The reflection is brighter today. Clearer. The sky above is fully awake. And the river beyond the palace continues its long, steady path, unchanged by the passing of nights and mornings. The Pharaoh pauses again at the edge of this space. Just as he did before. Just as he will again. The cycle is not broken. It simply continues. He stands there for a quiet moment, as the new day settles fully into place around him. And then, without urgency, he moves forward once more. Into the steady, unending rhythm of life within the palace. The courtyard light grows steadier as the morning settles fully into place. It no longer feels like a beginning, but like something that has already been unfolding for some time. The warmth spreads evenly across the stone ground, gentle and consistent, without sharp edges or harsh brightness. The Pharaoh stands for a moment longer at the edge of the courtyard. The pool nearby reflects the sky above in soft motion. Not from wind, but from the faint natural movement of water that never truly becomes still. Light touches its surface and breaks into quiet fragments. Then he continues walking. The attendants follow in their usual distance, never too close, never too far, their presence blending into the background of the palace like part of its structure. The path leads into another interior hall. This one is longer, lined with tall columns that stretch upward into the high ceiling. The space feels open, yet contained, as if it holds both air and silence together. Morning activity has fully returned here. Scribes sit in their places along one side. Their posture is steady. Their focus quiet and complete. Brushes move across prepared surfaces in slow, consistent motion, creating lines that will later be read, remembered, or stored. The sound is subtle. A soft rhythm of ink and surface. The Pharaoh walks past them. No interruption follows. No change in their movement. Only a brief lowering of heads as he passes, then a return to their steady work. This is how things remain. Continuous. Unbroken. He moves further into the hall where small discussions take place. Not loud. Not crowded. Just a few individuals gathered in quiet conversation, speaking in soft tones about simple matters of the day. The movement of goods. The condition of storage rooms. The timing of work along the riverbanks. Their words rise and fall gently, like the flow of water that never stays in one place for too long. The Pharaoh listens as he passes. Not stopping. Not interrupting. Only present for a moment within the rhythm of their speech before continuing forward. The palace feels alive again now, but in a calm way. Not filled with noise. Filled with continuity. Every space connected to the next by movement that never feels rushed. The corridor opens into another courtyard, smaller than the last. Here, shade and sunlight meet in soft balance. Trees along the edges create a filtered light that shifts slowly across the ground. A faint breeze passes through, moving leaves just slightly before settling again. The Pharaoh steps into the space and slows. The air here feels different. Not cooler exactly, but softer. Like it has been resting longer. In the center, a worker tends to a small arrangement of plants growing near the water's edge. Their hands move carefully through soil and leaves, adjusting without haste. When they notice the Pharaoh, they pause briefly. A quiet acknowledgement. Then they continue their work. There is no disruption. The world remains as it was. The Pharaoh stands for a moment in this space. Observing. Not with urgency or decision. Only with presence. The courtyard holds him gently, as it holds everything else within it. Time moves forward, but without pressure. After a while, he turns and continues along the far side of the courtyard. The path leads toward deeper sections of the palace again. Rooms where decisions are made in small, steady steps. Rooms where the structure of daily life is quietly maintained. As he moves, the sunlight outside continues its slow rise. The day becomes warmer, but still remains calm. The river flows beyond the walls, unchanged in its long journey. Everything continues in balance. Everything continues without interruption. The Pharaoh walks through these familiar spaces, each one part of a larger rhythm that has no clear beginning and no clear end. Just movement. Just time unfolding gently from one moment into the next. And as he passes deeper into the palace once more, the quiet order of the day remains around him. Steady, continuous, and completely at ease within itself. The palace has settled into the full shape of the day now. Morning no longer feels separate. It has blended into the continuous flow of time, becoming part of a longer, calmer stretch of hours. Inside the deeper corridors, the light has shifted again. It is stronger now, warmer, reaching farther into the halls before softening against the stone. Shadows remain, but they are lighter, less defined, stretched gently along the floor. The Pharaoh moves through these spaces without pause. His steps remain even, unchanged. The attendants follow in silence, their presence steady and familiar. Ahead, a hall opens where small gatherings continue to take place. Here, the rhythm of the palace slows even further. People sit or stand in small groups, speaking in low tones. Their words are not hurried. They do not overlap. Each voice rises, then settles, like breath moving in and out. The matters discussed are simple in nature. The flow of supplies. The condition of canals. The timing of work along fields and storage areas. Nothing feels distant or abstract. Everything remains close to daily life. The Pharaoh passes through this space. He does not interrupt. He does not pause for long. Only briefly does he acknowledge the presence of those who speak, and then he continues forward, as though the movement itself is part of the understanding between them. The hall opens into a quieter passage again. This one feels slightly cooler, shaded from the stronger light outside. The walls here are plain, unadorned, their simplicity giving the space a sense of calm continuity. As he walks, the sound of the outside world becomes faint. The palace seems to breathe more slowly here. Each room connected by silence that flows naturally from one to the next. Further along, a small chamber appears. Inside, a single attendant prepares writing materials. Scrolls are arranged neatly. Ink is set in place. The work is not urgent, but ready. When the pharaoh enters, the attendant bows his head and waits. A moment passes. Then the pharaoh gives a quiet acknowledgement. The work begins. Not with ceremony. Not with force. But with calm continuation. A few words are spoken. Short. Measured. They are recorded slowly, carefully, each mark placed with attention that does not rush. The sound of writing fills the room softly. A steady, familiar rhythm. The pharaoh stands nearby, observing without interruption. His presence does not change the pace. It simply exists within it. After a short time, the exchange is complete. No finality. No conclusion marked with emphasis. Only a natural pause, as though the moment has reached its gentle stopping point on its own. The attendant lowers his head again. The pharaoh turns. And the room returns to stillness behind him. He continues through the corridor, where the light has now shifted further toward the afternoon. It is brighter outside the windows, but inside the palace, it remains softened by stone and shade. The temperature feels slightly warmer now. Not uncomfortable. Just present. Like the natural progression of the day itself. He enters another courtyard. This one is quieter than the earlier ones. Fewer people are present here. The space feels more open, more reflective. The pool at its center is still. Its surface mirrors the sky, which now holds a deeper tone of blue, touched with warm light near the horizon of the sun's path. The pharaoh pauses again. Standing at the edge of the water. The reflection shifts slightly as he moves, then settles again into calm stillness. The breeze passes through gently, barely disturbing the surface. Everything here feels balanced. Unchanging, yet always moving. After a while, he continues walking. The courtyard fades behind him. The palace resumes its steady interior rhythm. Rooms of quiet work. Rooms of silent order. Spaces where nothing is rushed, and everything is maintained in careful continuity. The afternoon deepens slowly. Light grows warmer. Shadows stretch a little longer. The sense of time becomes softer, less defined, as if the entire palace is moving through a long, unbroken breath. The pharaoh walks onward through it all. Not separate from it. Not above it. Simply part of its steady flow. And as the day continues to unfold, there is no change in pace, no shift in urgency. Only the quiet, constant movement of life within the palace, gently carrying everything forward. The light has begun to change again. It is still warm, still steady, but no longer as high or sharp as before. It spreads more gently now across the palace corridors, as though the day itself is beginning to lower its voice. Shadows grow slightly longer along the floor. Not dark. Just extended. Quiet. The pharaoh moves through these familiar halls without change in pace. Each step remains measured, unhurried, almost blending into the silence around him. The attendants follow as they always do, their presence consistent, almost invisible in its steadiness. The palace feels different in this hour. Not active in the way of morning. Not still in the way of night. Something in between. A soft continuation. A settling. In one of the wider halls, fewer voices are heard now. The small gatherings that marked earlier hours have begun to disperse. People move more slowly, their tasks winding down in gentle stages rather than stopping all at once. There is no clear end to activity. Only a gradual easing. The Pharaoh passes through this space. The sound of his movement is faint against the stone. Even that seems softened by the afternoon air. Ahead, a long corridor opens, lined with columns that cast alternating bands of light and shade. The pattern shifts as he walks through it. Light. Shadow. Light again. Like a slow, steady rhythm that follows him without effort. The air is slightly warmer here, held by stone that has absorbed the sun throughout the day. Yet it is not heavy. It is calm. Balanced. He continues forward. The palace feels larger in this part of the day, as though its quiet spaces have expanded with time itself. At the end of the corridor, another courtyard opens. This one is different from the earlier ones. More enclosed. More still. The trees here are older, their branches heavier, their leaves moving only when the breeze reaches them directly. The pool at the center reflects the sky in deeper tones now. The brightness of morning has faded. The clarity of midday has softened. What remains is a calm, golden blue mixture that feels like the slow exhale of the day. The Pharaoh steps into this courtyard and pauses. The air is gentle here. Not cold. Not warm. Just present. A small group of attendants is already here, standing near the edges of the space. They do not approach. They do not speak. They remain still, waiting without expectation. The Pharaoh does not move for a time. He stands at the edge of the pool, watching the surface. The water reflects the shifting sky above, breaking it into soft, uneven shapes whenever a faint ripple passes through. There is no urgency in this moment. No direction. Only presence. After a while, he begins to walk again along the edge of the courtyard. The stone beneath his feet is warm from the long day's light. The sound of movement is minimal, absorbed by the space itself. Beyond the courtyard walls, the world outside continues its slow rhythm. Fields quieting. Riverboats drifting in unhurried lines. The land gradually preparing for evening without interruption or noise. Inside the palace, that same transition is mirrored in subtle ways. Lamps are being prepared in distant rooms. Small adjustments are made to open spaces. Surfaces are cleared where work has ended for the day. Everything moves toward rest, but nothing stops abruptly. It all continues to soften. The Pharaoh turns from the courtyard and walks back into the interior halls. The light here is warmer now, touched by the lowering sun. It enters through high openings in long, slanted shapes. The corridors feel more enclosed than before, yet more peaceful. As he moves, the sense of afternoon slowly gives way to the beginning of evening. Not fully arrived, but approaching. The attendants remain with him in steady formation, their movements unchanged. There is no need for instruction. The rhythm of the day itself guides everything. They pass through familiar chambers again. Places that earlier held writing, discussion, and quiet work are now nearly empty. Only traces remain. A scroll left in place. A chair slightly turned. The faint scent of ink in the air. All signs of activity now resting in stillness. The Pharaoh continues forward. His presence moves through the palace like a steady current, unchanging, unbroken. And as the light outside deepens further, shifting slowly toward the softer tones of evening, the palace quietly follows along with it, entering the next gentle stage of the day without resistance, without interruption, only flow. Evening arrives without any clear moment of arrival. It simply becomes noticeable, slowly, as the light outside begins to soften into deeper tones. The golden warmth of late afternoon fades into a calmer ember glow. Shadows grow longer across the palace floors, stretching further than before, gently filling the spaces between columns and walls. The pharaoh walks through these changing halls. His pace does not alter. It remains steady, as it has been all day. But the world around him is clearly shifting now. Inside the palace, lamps begin to appear one by one. Not all at once. Not in a rush. In distant corridors, a small flame is lit. Then another. Then another after that. Each one brings a soft point of warmth into the growing dimness. The light they give is small, but steady. It does not push back the evening. It simply rests within it. The corridors take on a new character now. Where there was once daylight, there is now a gentle glow that moves with the flicker of flame. Stone surfaces reflected softly, creating a quiet blend of shadow and light that feels calm rather than dark. The pharaoh continues forward. Attendants move slightly closer now, though still maintaining their respectful distance. Their presence blends more naturally into the evening atmosphere, as though they, too, are part of the transition. Ahead, a wide hall opens where the final movements of the day are taking place. People move slowly here, completing last tasks. Not starting anything new. Just finishing what was already in motion. Scrolls are closed. Objects are placed in their resting positions. Workspaces are gently cleared. There is no sense of urgency in these actions. Only completion. The pharaoh passes through the space without interruption. His presence is acknowledged quietly, with lowered heads and still hands. Then the hall fades behind him. The corridor ahead grows quieter. More enclosed. More dimly lit. The lamps along the walls now form a continuous line of soft light, guiding the path forward in gentle rhythm. Each flame flickers slightly, but remains steady. The air feels cooler now, touched by the absence of direct sunlight. It carries a sense of calm completion. As he walks, the palace seems to breathe differently. Slower. Deeper. More settled. He reaches another courtyard. This one is no longer filled with activity. It is nearly empty now. The pool at its center reflects the evening sky, which has deepened into soft shades of blue and fading gold near the horizon. The water is still. Almost perfectly still. The pharaoh pauses at the edge. The reflection of the sky shimmers slightly as a faint breeze passes through, then returns to stillness again. Around him, lamps placed along the courtyard edges glow softly, casting warm circles of light onto the stone. The contrast between light and evening feels gentle, not sharp. Balanced. He stands there for a long moment. There is no movement except the slow shifting of light across the surface of the water. No sound except the faintest trace of wind passing through distant trees. The attendants remain behind him, silent and still. The world outside the palace continues its slow descent into night. And inside, the same transition continues in parallel. The pharaoh finally turns away from the courtyard. He does not hurry. He does not linger. He simply continues. The corridors ahead are now fully illuminated by lamps. Their light is steady and warm, guiding the path like a quiet thread through the palace. The deeper rooms feel more enclosed now, wrapped in evening calm. Here, the day's final activities are nearly complete. Only small movements remain. Final adjustments. Final preparations for night. The Pharaoh moves through it all in silence. His presence steady within the growing stillness. Ahead lies the final approach toward his private chambers again. The palace is now fully in evening mode. Soft light. Quiet movement. Slow rhythm. Everything returning to rest, not suddenly, but gradually, as it always has. And as he continues forward, the entire palace settles further into the calm embrace of night's beginning. Where the day does not end abruptly, but gently dissolves into stillness. The corridors grow quieter as the Pharaoh moves deeper into the inner sections of the palace. The lamps here are closer together now, their warm light forming a continuous path through the stone halls. Each flame burns steadily, small and controlled, casting gentle shadows that shift slowly with every passing step. The air is cooler than before. Not cold. Just softened by the absence of daylight. The sounds of the palace have nearly disappeared now. What remains is only the faint movement of distant attendants, the occasional soft adjustment of objects, the quiet settling of a place that has completed its day. The Pharaoh walks forward. His steps remain unchanged. Even. Unhurried. The attendants follow in silence, their presence now more subtle than ever, as though they belong naturally to the evening itself. Ahead, a familiar chamber appears. This is the space where the final part of the day always gathers. It is simple. Balanced. Calm. Inside, the light from the lamps is warm and steady, resting softly on the walls and floor. The room does not feel empty, yet it does not feel full either. It exists in a quiet middle space, where nothing demands attention and nothing resists it. A low resting seat has been prepared. Not elaborate. Just enough. The Pharaoh enters and pauses for a moment. The attendants remain near the entrance. Still. Waiting. There is no announcement. No ceremony. Only the natural slowing of the day reaching its final shape. Water is brought again. This time, more gently. The washing is slower, almost like a closing ritual rather than a preparation. The movements are careful, unhurried, as if even time itself is becoming softer. The linen cloths follow. Then the final touch of oil, faint in scent, warm in tone, settling lightly into the air. Everything feels quieter now. More distant. More inward. The Pharaoh stands for a moment in stillness. The room around him remains steady. Lamps flicker slightly, then return to their calm rhythm. Outside the chamber, the palace has fully entered night. The last traces of evening activity have faded. Doors are closed softly. Corridors are nearly empty. Only the lamps remain to guide the way through the darkness beyond. The Pharaoh moves toward the resting place. He does so without pause. Without hesitation. The motion is slow, natural, as though it has been repeated countless times before and will continue long after. He settles into rest. The movement is gentle. The linen shifts softly beneath him. The air in the room remains calm and still. The attendants lower their heads and step back slightly, their presence now reduced to the edges of the chamber. They do not speak. They do not move further. The room becomes quieter with each passing moment. Outside, the night deepens fully. The sky is now dark, filled with steady stars that hold their positions without change. The river continues its invisible movement beyond the palace walls, carrying the land through the night in its endless rhythm. Inside, the lamps begin to dim slightly. Not all at once. Just a soft reduction in brightness, as if the room itself is preparing to rest more deeply. The Pharaoh lies still. His breathing slow and even. The rhythm of the day now complete. There is no urgency left in the world. No unfinished movement. Only calm continuity. The chamber holds the silence fully now. Warm. Stable. Unbroken. And as the final moments of wakefulness fade, the palace around him settles completely into night. Where every sound becomes distant, every movement becomes still, and everything rests within the same quiet rhythm that has carried the day from its first light to its final calm. The palace is almost completely silent now. Not empty, but fully at rest. The lamps in the corridors burn lower than before, their light reduced to small, steady points that barely move against the surrounding darkness. They do not fight the night. They simply exist within it. Inside the chamber, the Pharaoh remains asleep. His breathing is slow. Even. Unchanging. It carries a rhythm so steady that it almost blends with the stillness of the room itself. The attendants remain near the edges of the space. They do not speak. They do not move unless necessary. Even their presence feels softened by the depth of night, as if the silence has settled over everything equally. Outside the palace walls, the world continues its quiet motion. The Nile flows in darkness, unseen but constant. Fields rest under the night sky. Animals settle into still places. Everything that moved during the day has now entered its own calm pause. Above it all, the sky is wide and deep. The stars remain fixed in their distant positions, steady and patient, like quiet witnesses to the passage of time. No sound reaches the palace from outside. Only stillness. Only night. Inside the chamber, one of the lamps flickers slightly. The flame leans, then steadies again. Its light is weak now, but it holds on gently, casting a small pool of warmth near the resting place. Shadows deepen in the corners of the room. They do not feel heavy. Only soft. Like the edges of sleep itself. Time passes in long, quiet stretches. Not measured. Not marked. Only experienced as a gradual deepening of silence. The Pharaoh does not move. His rest continues without interruption. The rhythm of the night remains unchanged around him. The attendants shift only slightly from time to time, maintaining their positions with calm discipline. Even these small movements feel rare, almost distant, as though the night has slowed everything down to its simplest form. Outside, the sky changes in a way that is barely noticeable. The stars seem a little softer. The darkness a little deeper in some places, lighter in others. It is not yet dawn. But the night is no longer at its most absolute point. Something quiet begins to shift. Not toward waking. Not yet. Only toward the possibility of return. Within the chamber, the final lamp continues to burn. Its flame is very small now. Almost delicate. It gives just enough light to hold the space together, to keep the edges of the room from disappearing entirely into shadow. The Pharaoh's breathing remains unchanged. Steady. Calm. The night surrounds him fully. No sound reaches him. No movement disturbs him. Only the quiet presence of time passing gently around him. And so the palace remains in this deep stillness. Where the world outside rests, the river flows unseen, and even time itself seems to slow into a soft, continuous hush. The deepest part of the night does not last in a sharp way. It slowly softens. Not suddenly. Not clearly. but in a way that can only be noticed over time. Inside the chamber, the final lamp still burns. Its flame is small now, almost fragile, yet steady enough to hold a quiet point of light in the darkness. The Pharaoh sleeps without change. His breathing remains even, slow, and uninterrupted, as if it belongs not only to him but to the room itself. The attendants remain still at the edges of the chamber. Their presence is patient, quiet, almost blending into the walls. Outside, the sky begins to shift in the smallest possible way. At first, there is no visible change. Only a feeling that the darkness is no longer as deep as before. The stars still shine, but their brightness seems slightly softened, as though they are stepping back into distance. The night is not ending quickly. It is loosening. Slowly. Like a long-held breath being released without sound. The Nile continues its unseen movement beyond the palace walls. Its flow does not change. It does not hurry toward morning or linger in night. It simply continues, steady and unchanged, beneath the sky that begins its quiet transformation. Inside the palace, the silence remains complete. Corridors are still. Lamps continue to burn low. The entire structure feels suspended in a long pause, held gently between night and what comes next. Then, very gradually, something begins to form at the edge of the horizon. A faintness. Almost imperceptible. Not light yet. Only the suggestion of it. A softening of darkness that spreads outward in the sky without direction or sound. The change is so slow that it feels more like memory than movement. Inside the chamber, the final lamp flickers slightly. Not weakening. Just responding to the subtle shift in the air. The Pharaoh remains asleep. Unmoved. Unchanged. The night around him is still deep, but no longer absolute. A softness begins to enter it, like water gently blending with still water. The attendants do not react. There is nothing to respond to yet. Only the gradual turning of time itself. Outside, the horizon continues to lighten. Not bright. Not golden. Only a pale, quiet line forming far away where sky meets land. The stars remain visible, but some begin to feel less certain in their presence, as if their edges are fading into the deepening calm. The palace remains in silence. No doors open. No footsteps move. Only the faint, steady glow of lamps marking the passage of time within stone corridors. Inside the chamber, the lamp's flame lowers slightly again. Still present. Still holding light. But more delicate now, as though it understands that night is nearing its final stage. The Pharaoh stirs faintly. Not waking. Only a subtle shift within sleep, like a body adjusting to the changing rhythm of the world around it. The air in the room feels slightly different now. Softer. Less dense. As if something in the distance is beginning to breathe again. The sky outside continues its slow return. A gentle gradient of change spreads upward, still faint, still far from full morning. But it is no longer hidden. It is becoming part of the world again. Within the palace, everything remains quiet. Yet the stillness now carries a different feeling. Not final. Not closed. But preparing. The final lamp burns low, but steady. The chamber holds its calm. And the Pharaoh remains in deep rest, suspended between the last moment of night and the first breath of returning day. As the world begins, once again, its endless, quiet cycle. The faint line on the horizon slowly widens. It does not rush. It does not spread suddenly. It simply grows, little by little, as though the sky itself is remembering how to hold light again. Inside the chamber, the final lamp continues to burn. Its flame is now very small, but steady, like a quiet point of warmth in the deep calm of early morning. The Pharaoh remains asleep. His breathing is unchanged. Slow. Even. Carried by a rhythm that feels older than the room itself. The attendants remain still at the edges of the chamber. They do not move forward. They do not speak. They wait, as they always do, within the soft boundaries of night turning into morning. Outside, the sky begins to soften more clearly. The darkness is no longer complete. It is thinning. Not disappearing at once, but dissolving in gradual layers, like fabric slowly lightening in color. The stars are still present, but their brightness is gentler now. Less sharp. Less distant. As if they are preparing to fade back into the sky from which they came. The Nile remains in its steady flow beyond the palace walls. Unseen. Unchanging. Carrying the land forward without pause, just as it always has. Inside the palace, the silence continues. But it is no longer the silence of deep night. It is something closer to waiting. A calm readiness that rests within the stone and air. The final lamp flickers again. Its flame leans slightly, then steadies. The chamber is now held mostly by the soft light of early dawn beginning to enter from outside. A pale glow begins to touch the edges of the room. Not strong enough to define everything, but enough to suggest form where there was only shadow before. The Pharaoh stirs again. This time a little more noticeably. Still not waking. Only moving within sleep, as though the body is slowly adjusting to the returning day. The attendants remain patient. Their stillness unchanged. Outside, the horizon brightens further. The faint line of light becomes wider, more present, spreading slowly upward into the sky. The darkness does not resist it. It simply yields, gently, without resistance. The palace begins to feel the change more clearly now. Not through sound, but through atmosphere. The air becomes slightly fresher. Slightly lighter. As if the night is loosening its hold on everything it has touched. Inside the chamber, the final lamp dims further. Its light is no longer the main source in the room. It is now only a small companion to the growing dawn outside. The Pharaoh's breathing remains steady. But there is a subtle shift now in his stillness. A quiet readiness. Not conscious. Not intentional. Just part of the rhythm of returning day. The attendants take the first small steps of movement. Not forward yet. Just subtle adjustments. A sign that the transition is nearing completion. Outside, the sky is no longer dark. It is soft now. A mixture of pale gold and early blue, still gentle, still quiet, but undeniably present. The stars fade one by one. Not suddenly. Not all at once. But in a slow retreat, as if they are stepping back into memory. Inside the chamber, the final lamp flickers one last time. Then steadies. Then burns low again. Holding on. But no longer alone in the room. The dawn has entered fully now, even if softly. The Pharaoh begins to wake. Not abruptly. Not with urgency. Only gradually, as though returning from a long and peaceful distance. His eyes open slowly. The room is no longer dark. It is filled with early morning light. Soft. Calm. Familiar. The attendants step forward in silence. The day begins again. Not as something new, but as something that has always continued. The cycle resumes. The rhythm returns. And the palace, once again, moves gently into another quiet morning within the endless flow of time. Morning does not arrive all at once. It unfolds. Slowly. Like light returning to a quiet room after a long pause. The chamber is now filled with the soft glow of early day. No sharp brightness. Only a calm, pale illumination that rests gently across the stone walls and linen-covered space. The Pharaoh sits up slowly. There is no rush in the movement. No sudden awareness. Only a gradual return, as though the body is following a rhythm it has known for a long time. The air feels fresh. Cool. Carrying the faint stillness of night that has not fully disappeared yet. The attendants move forward in silence. Their presence is steady, familiar, and unchanged. Water is brought again. Clear. Still. Held in a simple basin that reflects the morning light in soft, shifting patterns. The washing begins. Slow. Careful. Unhurried. The water touches the skin gently, carrying away the last traces of sleep, not as an abrupt change, but as a quiet transition into the day. Linen cloths follow. Soft. Light. Drying without pressure. The room remains silent throughout. Not empty of meaning. Only free of sound. Then comes the oil. Subtle in scent. Warm in tone. It rises softly into the air, blending with the morning light as it enters the chamber. The Pharaoh stands as the attendants prepare his garments. Everything is done with practiced calm. The linen is fresh again. Light in color. Simple in form. It is wrapped carefully, each fold placed with steady hands that do not hesitate or hurry. The fabric settles naturally against the body, as if it belongs there without effort. The collar follows. Then the bracelets. Then the small, familiar adornments that mark the beginning of the day. Each one placed with quiet intention. Nothing excessive. Nothing rushed. Only continuation. Outside the chamber, the palace is already gently awake. Soft footsteps move through distant corridors. The sound of work returning in slow stages. Not loud. Not sudden. Just present. Scribes are already seated again in their places. Their brushes move with steady rhythm across prepared surfaces. Lines form slowly. Thoughts become written form again. The Pharaoh steps forward. The day continues. He walks through the corridor that leads outward from the chamber. The light is brighter now than before, but still soft enough to feel calm. It stretches along the stone in long, gentle lines. The palace feels the same as always. And yet, it is never exactly the same. Each morning carries its own quiet version of the same familiar world. He passes through the hall where scribes work. The sound of writing is soft and continuous. Like rain that never becomes heavy. Like breath that never breaks. No one stops their work. No one is interrupted. Only a brief lowering of heads as he passes. Then everything resumes. The flow continues. Ahead, the courtyard appears again. The pool is still, reflecting the sky, which has now fully shifted into morning light. Soft blue. Pale gold near the edges. The water holds both sky and silence at once. The Pharaoh pauses at the edge once more. As he always does. As he always will. The moment is quiet. Unmarked. Complete in itself. The attendants stand at a distance. The world outside continues its steady rhythm. The Nile flows. The fields begin their work. The palace breathes its calm structure into another day. and the Pharaoh remains there for a moment longer. Before stepping forward again into the continuous flow of life within the palace, where every day begins the same way, and yet never feels exactly the same, always moving, always gentle, always at rest within its own rhythm. The courtyard remains still for a little longer after the Pharaoh steps away from the edge of the pool. The reflection of the sky lingers on the water's surface, gently shifting with the faintest movement of air. It does not break. It does not scatter. It simply changes, as if it understands that everything in this place is meant to move slowly. The Pharaoh walks onward. His steps remain even, unchanged. The attendants follow, their presence steady and quiet behind him, blending into the rhythm of the morning like they have always been there. The palace feels more awake now, but never loud. It never becomes loud. Instead, it fills itself with layers of quiet activity, small movements, soft voices, careful work continuing in its natural flow. He enters a long interior hall. The light here is softer again, filtered through high openings that stretch along the upper walls. It falls in calm patterns across the floor, changing slowly as the sun continues its rise. Along the sides of the hall, scribes are already fully engaged in their work. Brushes move. Ink flows. Scrolls gradually fill with lines that carry meaning, record, and memory. The sound is barely noticeable unless one listens closely. A gentle repetition. A quiet rhythm that belongs to the palace itself. The Pharaoh passes through this space without interruption. There is no need for attention to shift. Everything continues as it should. A brief lowering of heads acknowledges his presence, then returns immediately to work. The flow is uninterrupted. He moves further into the hall where small gatherings form again. Not formal. Not crowded. Just simple clusters of individuals speaking in soft tones about the steady concerns of the day. Water channels. Storage spaces. Fields and timing. Nothing urgent. Only maintenance of balance. Their voices rise and fall gently, never overlapping too sharply. The Pharaoh listens as he passes. Not stopping. Only receiving the moment as it flows by. The corridor opens into another courtyard. This one is quieter than the others. More shaded. The trees here create a soft canopy of light and shadow that moves slowly with the breeze. The air feels slightly cooler in this space. Calm. Resting. At the center, a small pool reflects the filtered light above in broken patterns of green and gold. The Pharaoh pauses again at its edge. A familiar pause. A quiet return to stillness within movement. Nothing changes around him. And yet everything continues to shift gently through time. A worker nearby tends to the plants along the edge of the courtyard. Their hands move with care, adjusting leaves and soil without breaking rhythm. When they notice the Pharaoh, they pause briefly, then continue. The world does not stop for him. It simply acknowledges and moves on. The Pharaoh remains for a moment longer. Then turns. The path ahead leads deeper into the palace again. The corridors grow slightly cooler as he moves away from the open air. The stone holds the memory of night in its deeper layers, slowly releasing it into the warmth of the morning. The palace feels balanced now. Fully awake. Fully steady. The morning has passed its earliest stage and now settles into the long, continuous stretch of daily life. Inside, work continues in soft waves. Outside, the river flows without change. And the Pharaoh moves through it all with the same calm presence, neither separate from it nor overwhelmed by it. Just part of its endless rhythm. A quiet center within a moving world. and as he continues deeper into the halls once more, the day unfolds around him. Steady, familiar, and gently unbroken. The palace begins to feel different again, though nothing changes suddenly. It never changes suddenly. Only gradually, like light shifting across stone over the passing hours. The Pharaoh moves through a quieter section of the inner corridors. The air here is slightly warmer now, touched by the full rise of the sun outside. It has traveled through walls and courtyards, settling into the deeper parts of the structure in a slow, steady way. Everything feels settled into midday rhythm. Not beginning. Not ending. Just continuing. The sounds of writing and quiet speech are still present, but more distant now, as though they belong to another layer of the palace rather than the space he is currently passing through. Scribes continue their work without pause. Ink meets surface. Thought becomes record. The rhythm remains unchanged. The Pharaoh walks on. His steps are the same as they have been since morning. Even. Measured. Unhurried. The attendants follow, their presence steady in the background of the hall, never drawing attention away from the quiet movement of the day. He enters a wider chamber where light falls more directly. High openings in the walls allow the sunlight to enter in soft, slanted lines. It is stronger here, but still gentle. Still controlled by stone and structure. The floor is warm beneath each step. The air carries a sense of midday stillness, where movement feels slightly slower, slightly more spaced. A few individuals are present here, arranging objects and tending to small tasks that do not require urgency. Their work continues without interruption when the Pharaoh passes. Only a brief pause. A quiet acknowledgement. Then everything resumes. The rhythm remains intact. The Pharaoh does not linger. He continues through the chamber and into another corridor that leads toward a more open space. Here, the palace feels wider again. More air moves through it. A faint breeze enters from an outer courtyard, carrying the scent of sun-warmed stone and distant water. It passes through the corridor gently, then fades. Ahead, another courtyard opens. This one is brighter than the earlier shaded spaces. The sun is now higher in the sky, and its light spreads more fully across the ground. The pool at the center reflects a strong, steady blue, broken only occasionally by soft ripples that drift outward and disappear. The Pharaoh steps into this space and pauses. As he always does. The pause is not for observation alone. It is part of the rhythm itself. A natural moment of stillness within movement. Around him, the courtyard remains quiet. A few attendants stand at the edges, their posture unchanged, their attention steady. The world outside the palace continues its own midday rhythm. The river flows without variation. Fields continue their work. The land holds its slow, steady cycle beneath the sun. Inside the courtyard, the light is warmer now. Shadows are shorter. The air is slightly heavier than in the morning, but still comfortable. Still calm. The Pharaoh remains by the water for a moment longer. Watching. Not thinking in urgency. Only present within the space as it is. Then he turns and continues walking. The courtyard fades behind him as he re-enters the palace interior. The corridors here feel more enclosed again, offering shade from the stronger sunlight outside. The stone walls carry the warmth of the day, slowly releasing it back into the air. Everything continues its steady progression toward afternoon. No rush. No break. Only flow. He passes through familiar halls once more. Some spaces are now quieter than before. The busiest hours of the morning have softened. Work continues, but at a more even pace. The palace has settled into the middle of its day. A long stretch of calm continuity. The pharaoh moves through it all, unchanged in rhythm, surrounded by the steady presence of those who serve and maintain the structure of daily life. And as he continues forward, the light outside begins its slow shift again, gently preparing the world for the gradual approach of afternoon's deeper calm. The palace grows quieter again in a way that is almost unnoticeable at first. Not because sound disappears, but because everything begins to soften. Movements slow slightly. Voices lower. Even the light itself feels more settled, as the sun continues its long path across the sky. The pharaoh walks through a corridor that feels warmer than before. The stone has absorbed the heat of the day, holding it gently within its surface. It releases that warmth slowly into the air, creating a steady, balanced feeling throughout the passage. His steps remain unchanged. Even. Measured. There is no urgency in his movement. There never has been. The attendants follow in their usual formation, their presence steady and quiet, blending into the flow of the palace as though they are part of its architecture. Ahead, a wider hall opens where activity is still present, but more subdued than earlier in the day. People continue their work, though at a gentler pace now. Tasks that began in the morning are nearing completion. Nothing new is being rushed into place. Everything is in a state of gradual finishing. Scribes still write. But their movements are slower, more deliberate. Ink dries on parchment as the afternoon light rests across their workspaces. Occasional soft exchanges of words drip through the hall, but they do not build into anything larger. They rise and settle, like small waves that never reach a shore. The pharaoh passes through without pause. No interruption follows. Only brief acknowledgements. Then silence resumes in his wake. The corridor opens into another courtyard. This one is familiar, yet it feels slightly different in this hour. The light has shifted again. It is no longer the sharp clarity of morning or the steady brightness of midday. It has softened into something warmer. Slightly golden. Slightly heavier. The shadows beneath trees stretch longer now, slowly changing shape as the sun moves lower. The pool at the center reflects this change clearly. Its surface holds the sky in a calmer, deeper tone. Not dark. Not bright. Just balanced in between. The pharaoh steps forward and pauses at the edge of the water. This pause feels longer than the others, though time itself does not change. Only perception. Around him, the courtyard remains still. The attendants stand quietly at a distance, their presence unchanged. No one speaks. No one moves unnecessarily. The entire space feels suspended in a gentle afternoon stillness. Beyond the palace walls, the world continues its own slow rhythm. The river carries on its endless flow. Fields remain active but calm. The heat of the day begins to ease very slightly, though it is still present. Inside the courtyard, a faint breeze passes through. It moves across the surface of the water, creating small ripples that spread outward and then fade again into stillness. The pharaoh watches this briefly. Not as observation alone, but as part of the quiet rhythm of the day. Then he turns away from the water and continues walking. The courtyard slowly falls behind him. The palace interior welcomes him back into its cooler corridors. Here, the light is more controlled again. Filtered. Softened by stone and structure. The sense of afternoon deepens as he moves further inward. Rooms that were active earlier are now calmer. Work continues, but it feels more like completion than creation. Objects are arranged. Spaces are tidied. Tasks are brought gently toward their natural end. Nothing is forced. Nothing is rushed. The Pharaoh passes through this slow unfolding of the day without interruption. His presence remains steady within it, but does not alter it. It simply moves through, like time itself made visible in human form. The attendants remain close enough to follow, but far enough not to disturb the rhythm of the space. Everything continues in quiet balance. And as he walks deeper into the palace once more, the afternoon begins its slow transition toward evening. Not marked by any single moment, but by a gradual softening of light, sound, and movement throughout the world around him. The afternoon no longer feels bright in the same way. It has softened. Not faded completely, but eased into a warmer, slower tone. The light that enters the palace now comes at a lower angle, stretching longer across the stone floors and making the corridors feel quieter than before. The Pharaoh continues walking. His pace remains unchanged. Even. Steady. As if the passing of time does not influence him, but simply moves around him. The corridors he passes through feel more still now. Work continues in distant rooms, but the energy has shifted. Tasks are no longer in progress in the same way as earlier. Instead, they are being completed, closed, set aside. The day is gently winding down, not through interruption, but through natural conclusion. Scribes finish their lines. Brushes pause more often between movements. Scrolls are gathered carefully, placed in order, and left to rest. Voices that were once slightly more frequent now appear only occasionally, and even then, they remain soft and brief. The Pharaoh moves through these spaces without disturbance. No one stops him. No one calls attention. Only the quiet acknowledgement of presence as he passes. Ahead, the palace opens into a long hall where the light feels different again. It is warmer here. More golden. The sun is lower now, though still above the horizon. Its light enters through high openings in the walls, creating elongated patterns that drift slowly across the floor. Everything feels stretched in time. Longer. Softer. The air carries a slight warmth that remains from the day, but it is beginning to lose its intensity. It does not press anymore. It rests. The Pharaoh walks through this hall, and for a moment, the space feels almost suspended. Not active. Not fully resting. Somewhere in between. The attendants follow at a measured distance, their movements unchanged. They have become part of the rhythm itself now, as constant as the stone and light. The hall opens into another courtyard. This one feels familiar in structure, but the atmosphere has clearly shifted with the passing hours. The pool at the center reflects a deeper, richer tone of sky. The blue is still present, but it is now blended with soft gold near the horizon, where the sun is slowly descending. The surface of the water is calm. Almost completely still. The Pharaoh pauses again at the edge. This pause carries the same quiet presence as all the others, but the feeling around it is slightly different now. The day is closer to its end. The air feels more settled. More reflective. Around him, the courtyard remains silent. Trees cast longer shadows across the stone ground. Their shapes shift gently as the light continues its slow descent. A faint breeze moves through the space. It is cooler than earlier now. It carries a subtle hint that evening is approaching, though it has not yet fully arrived. The attendants remain still at the edges of the courtyard. There is no movement from them beyond what is necessary. No sound. Only presence. The Pharaoh remains for a moment longer. Watching the water. Watching the light shift. Then he turns away. The courtyard fades behind him as he steps back into the interior of the palace. Here, the corridors feel dimmer than before, though not dark. The transition toward evening is now clearly visible in the way light behaves within the space. Lamps that were not needed earlier are now being prepared in distant sections of the palace. Small flames begin to appear again, one by one, like quiet signals of the approaching night. The Pharaoh continues forward through these familiar halls. The rhythm of the day has changed, but only slightly. It is still continuous, still calm, still unbroken. But it is now moving toward closure, toward rest. And as he walks deeper into the palace once more, the world around him continues its slow descent into evening. Where light softens, shadows lengthen, and the entire day prepares itself, quietly and gently, for night. Evening does not enter the palace with any sharpness. It arrives the way quiet does after a long sound has faded. Gradually, softly, without drawing attention to itself. The light outside the palace has now shifted fully into warm tones of gold and deepening amber. Inside, that light becomes thinner, more delicate, as it passes through the high openings in the stone walls. The corridors grow dimmer in a natural way, as though the palace itself is slowly exhaling. The Pharaoh continues walking. His steps remain steady, unchanged. There is no difference in pace between morning, afternoon, or evening. Only the world around him changes its tone. Attendants begin to light more lamps now. One by one. Not everywhere at once. Not in response to urgency. But in a calm sequence that follows long practice. A flame appears in one corridor. Then another nearby. Then another further ahead. Each one adds a small, steady warmth to the deepening spaces. The palace begins to glow from within. Soft light spreads across stone surfaces, replacing the fading daylight with something gentler. Something closer. More intimate. The Pharaoh passes through these newly lit halls without pause. The transition from day to evening does not interrupt him. It simply surrounds him. Ahead, activity becomes quieter. The rooms that were active earlier in the day now feel almost still. Work has slowed. Not stopped abruptly, but eased into completion. Scrolls are closed. Tools are set down. Spaces are left in order, ready for the night. The sound of movement is now rare. When it appears, it is soft and brief. The palace is entering its resting rhythm. The Pharaoh moves through it as he always has. Not separate from it. Not directing it. Simply within it. The corridor opens into a familiar courtyard. Now, the light is clearly evening light. The sky above has deepened into layered tones of fading blue and warm gold near the horizon. The sun is lower now, almost resting at the edge of the world. The pool in the center reflects this change. Its surface holds both light and shadow together, shifting gently as the evening air moves across it. The Pharaoh pauses at the edge. The same pause as before. But the atmosphere around it has changed again. There is a deeper calm now. A sense of closure slowly forming within the day. The attendants remain at the perimeter of the courtyard. Their silhouettes are now more visible in the lamplight that begins to spread along the edges of the space. No one speaks. No one moves unnecessarily. Everything is measured. Everything is still. A faint breeze moves through the courtyard. It is cooler now, carrying the first clear feeling of night's approach. The trees respond gently, their leaves shifting softly before settling again. The Pharaoh remains for a moment longer, watching the water, watching the sky. Then he turns away. The courtyard fades behind him as he re-enters the palace interior. Now, the corridors are fully transitioning into evening. Lamps line the pathways more frequently. Their warm glow replaces the last traces of daylight, creating a steady rhythm of light and shadow along the stone walls. The palace feels different now. Not active, not asleep, but in transition. A space between movement and rest. The Pharaoh continues forward through this quiet transformation. Each hall he passes through reflects the same shift. Less activity. More stillness. More completion. The day is no longer expanding. It is gently folding inward. And as he moves deeper into the palace, evening settles fully around him. Not as an ending, but as a slow and peaceful turning toward night. Night does not arrive quickly. It gathers. Slowly. Quietly. Until one moment, you realize it is already everywhere. The palace is now fully within evening's final stage. The last traces of daylight are gone from the corridors, replaced completely by the steady glow of oil lamps placed at measured intervals along the walls. Their light is warm. Small. Constant. It does not push back the darkness. It simply lives inside it. The Pharaoh continues walking through these softly lit passages. His presence remains unchanged. Even now, at the end of the day, there is no shift in his rhythm. No urgency toward completion. Only continuation. The attendants move with him in silence, their forms partially shaped by lamplight and shadow. They are close enough to guide, far enough to remain unobtrusive. Ahead, the palace feels quieter than it has been all day. The sounds that once carried through its halls are now almost completely gone. No writing. No speaking. No movement that is not necessary. Only the soft, distant sense of a place settling into rest. The corridors grow dimmer between lamps, creating long stretches of shadow that feel deep but calm. The light does not fully reach every corner. And it does not need to. The palace is no longer in a state of activity. It is in a state of stillness. The Pharaoh passes through a final interior hall. Here, the air feels cooler. Not cold. Just gently released from the warmth of the day. Stone holds the memory of heat, but it is fading now, slowly returning to neutrality. Ahead, a familiar chamber appears. This is where the final transition of the day always completes itself. Inside, the light is softer than in the corridors. A few lamps burn quietly, their flames small and steady. The room feels enclosed, but not heavy. It feels protected. Still. The attendants enter with him but remain at a distance, their presence reduced to the edges of the space. Everything here moves in the smallest possible way. A basin of water is brought forward. Still. Clear. Its surface reflects the lamplight in faint, wavering shapes. The Pharaoh washes slowly. There is no urgency in any motion. Each movement feels like a closing gesture rather than preparation. A return rather than a beginning. The cloths follow. Soft linen. Familiar touch. The final scent of oil is faint, almost imperceptible now, blending with the warm air of the chamber. Everything is quiet. Everything is complete. Outside the chamber, the palace has fully entered night. Corridors are still. Doors are closed gently. Lamps continue their steady burn, marking the structure of space with warm points of light. There is no movement except what is necessary for maintenance and watchfulness. Inside the chamber, the Pharaoh rests. The transition is complete. The body settles into stillness. Breathing slows into a steady, even rhythm that matches the calm of the room itself. The attendants remain at their places. Silent. Unmoving. Present only as quiet outlines in the lamplight. Outside, the Nile continues its unseen journey through the night. Uninterrupted. Unchanging. Above it, the sky is filled with stars that hold their positions in deep, steady silence. Time does not feel like it is stopping. It feels like it is resting. And within the palace, everything has now reached its calmest state. No beginning. No end. Only continuity. Only quiet. Only night holding the world gently in place. And as the final lamps continue to burn softly through the darkness, the palace rests once again in its endless, peaceful rhythm. The palace is fully asleep now. Not empty. Just still in a way that feels complete. The lamps burn low throughout the corridors, their light reduced to quiet, steady points that barely disturb the surrounding darkness. Each flame seems to float gently within the night, small and patient. Inside the chamber, the Pharaoh rests. His breathing is slow. Even. Unbroken. There is no movement in his sleep, only the steady rhythm of rest that continues without interruption. The attendants remain at the edges of the room. They do not speak. They do not move unless necessary. Even their presence feels softened by the depth of night, as though the darkness itself has wrapped around everything equally. Outside, the world has settled into its most quiet form. The Nile flows through darkness unseen, carrying its endless motion beneath a sky filled with distant stars. Fields lie still. Paths are empty. The land rests under a wide, calm sky. Above, the stars shine steadily, without urgency or change, holding their places like quiet witnesses to the passing of time. Inside the palace, silence is complete. No writing. No footsteps. No distant voices. Only the faintest sound of oil lamps, their flames gently breathing within glass and stone. Time moves, but it does not feel active. It feels suspended. Like a long pause between breaths. Within the chamber, one lamp flickers slightly. Then steadies. Then becomes still again. Its light is small now, barely reaching the edges of the room, but it remains present. A soft point in the darkness. The Pharaoh does not move. His rest continues with the same steady rhythm as before. Nothing interrupts it. Nothing changes it. The attendants shift only subtly from time to time, maintaining their positions with quiet discipline. Even these small movements feel distant, almost like part of the background rather than action. Outside, the night begins its slow transformation again. Not toward day yet, but toward something subtle. A soft thinning at the edge of darkness that cannot yet be seen clearly. Only felt. The sky remains dark, but it no longer feels as deep as before. There is a sense of gradual change beginning far beyond the horizon. The stars remain bright, but some seem slightly less sharp, as if the sky itself is preparing for a shift that has not yet arrived. Inside the chamber, the final lamp continues to burn. Very small now. Very quiet. Its flame leans slightly, then steadies, as if responding to something beyond the room. The Pharaoh sleeps on. Unchanged. Steady. Held within the same calm rhythm that has carried him through every part of the day. And as the night continues its slow passage, everything in the palace remains wrapped in stillness. Waiting, not for urgency, but for the gentle return of light that will come again in its own time. The deepest part of the night does not break. It simply begins to loosen. Slowly. Almost imperceptibly. Inside the palace chamber, the final lamp still burns, though its flame is smaller now, quieter, as if it has grown used to the darkness around it. The Pharaoh remains asleep. His breathing is unchanged. Steady. Even. The kind of rhythm that does not belong to time, but moves alongside it. The attendants remain still at the edges of the chamber. Their presence is patient, unchanged, blending into the stillness so completely that it feels like part of the room itself. Outside, the sky begins its slow return. Not yet visible as light. Only as a faint softening in the darkness. The stars are still there, but something about them feels different now. Slightly less sharp. Slightly more distant. As though the night is no longer holding them with the same depth. The Nile continues its unseen movement beyond the palace walls. It does not change its rhythm. It never does. It simply flows, as it has always flowed, beneath the sky that begins to shift again. Inside the palace, silence remains complete. No footsteps echo through the corridors. No voices rise in the distance. Only the faint presence of oil lamps, scattered like quiet points of warmth through the vast structure. Time does not feel active. It feels suspended, as though the world is resting inside a long, gentle pause. Then, far beyond the horizon, something begins to change. Not light yet. Only the suggestion of it. A thinning in the darkness that spreads slowly upward into the sky. So subtle it could almost be imagined. But it is real. The night is beginning to release its hold. Inside the chamber, the final lamp flickers slightly. Then steadies. Its light is now very small, but still present. A quiet companion to the slow transformation outside. The Pharaoh stirs faintly. Not waking. Only shifting within sleep, as though responding to the subtle change in the world around him. The attendants do not move. There is no need yet. The sky outside continues to soften. The deep black of night begins to show faint variation, as if something is pressing gently from behind it. The stars remain visible, but a few now seem less distinct, their brightness softened by the approaching change. Inside the palace, the air feels slightly different. Not warmer. Not cooler. Just lighter. As though the night itself is becoming less heavy. The final lamp continues to burn. Its flame lowers slightly, then steadies again. The chamber remains calm. Still. Held in a balance between night and what is coming next. The Pharaoh's breathing remains steady. Unbroken. The rhythm of rest continues without disturbance. Outside, the horizon begins to show the faintest trace of pale color. Not gold yet. Not blue. Only a soft suggestion that the sky is preparing to change again. The night does not end all at once. It fades. Slowly. Like a long-held silence releasing its final breath. Inside the palace, everything remains still. But that stillness now carries a sense of anticipation that is not urgency, but continuity. A familiar turning of the world. A cycle that has no beginning and no end. Only return. And as the first hint of dawn quietly begins to form beyond the edge of darkness, the palace remains wrapped in calm silence, waiting gently for the light that will come again. The change in the sky is still very subtle at first. Almost easy to miss. But it is there. A faint lifting of darkness along the far edge of the horizon, as if the night is slowly becoming lighter from within rather than being replaced from above. Inside the palace chamber, the final lamp still burns. Its flame is now small and delicate, casting just enough light to hold the room together in a soft, warm glow. The Pharaoh remains asleep. His breathing continues in the same steady rhythm. Slow. Even. Unchanged. The attendants remain at the edges of the chamber, silent and still, their presence shaped by long practice and quiet patience. Outside, the sky continues its slow transformation. The darkness is no longer complete. It begins to soften into layers of deep blue and muted gray, gently unfolding upward as though the sky itself is remembering the shape of morning. The stars are still visible, but fewer now. Some have faded into the growing light, while others remain faintly present, holding on a little longer before disappearing. The Nile continues its unseen flow beneath this changing sky. It does not react. It does not shift. It simply moves forward, as it always has, beneath night and day alike. Inside the palace, the silence is still deep. But it is no longer the silence of the deepest night. It is becoming something else. A waiting silence. A quiet readiness. The final lamp flickers once. Then steadies again. Its flame is barely larger than a point of warmth, yet it continues to hold the chamber in gentle balance. The Pharaoh stirs again. This time slightly more. Still not waking. Only the natural adjustment of rest as the world around him begins to change. The attendants remain motionless. They wait for the right moment that never needs to be announced. Outside, the horizon grows lighter. A thin band of pale color stretches slowly across the edge of the world. Not bright yet. Not golden. Only soft and early, like the beginning of breath after long stillness. The night is now clearly in its final stage. Not ending abruptly, but dissolving gradually into morning. Inside the chamber, the final lamp lowers again. Its flame is now very small, but it still remains. The Pharaoh's breathing stays calm and even. A steady presence within the shifting quiet of dawn. Then, slowly, the light from outside begins to enter the room. Not strongly. Not fully. Just enough to soften the edges of shadow. The walls begin to show their shape more clearly. The air feels slightly lighter. The room is no longer held entirely by artificial light. The morning is returning. The Pharaoh begins to wake. Not suddenly. Not sharply. But gradually, as though returning from a long and peaceful distance. His eyes open slowly. The chamber is no longer dark. It is filled with early morning light. Soft. Gentle. Familiar. The attendants step forward quietly. Everything begins again. Not as something new, but as something that has always continued. The cycle turns once more. The palace breathes into another day. And the endless rhythm of calm, steady life begins again in silence and light. The morning settles quietly into the palace, without ceremony, without sudden change. Light rests softly across the stone, the same way it always does. Lamps are no longer needed in most corridors, and even where they still burn, they feel like memories of the night rather than necessity. The Pharaoh's day begins again, not as something separate, but as part of the same long, unbroken rhythm that has always been moving forward. Steps will be taken. Work will continue. The river will keep flowing beyond the walls. And the palace will remain what it has always been, a place where time does not rush, but simply passes in steady, gentle waves. Nothing truly ends here. It only continues. Quietly. Endlessly. In calm light.